My name is Henry Cole. I am 29 years old, and I live in a small apartment above an old row of shops on the edge of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I do not have much. I have an old Honda car that has already gone more than 200,000 miles. I have a rented garage that is barely making it, and I have a body that has learned to keep working even when my mind wants to stop. The garage is called Cole Auto Repair. It is not really mine in the way people might think. I still owe money on the lease, on the old car lift I bought used, and on a small loan from the bank that I took just to keep the lights on. But it is the only thing I have ever made with my own hands. I started working on cars when I was 18. I never went to college. I never learned how to speak in a fancy way. I just know what an engine sounds like when it is about to stop working, and I know how to fix it before it leaves someone stuck on the side of the road. 3 months ago, everything started to fall apart. A development company called Harrington Properties bought the whole block where my garage is. They want to tear everything down and build a small shopping area with coffee shops and a gym. I am the last person who has not signed away the lease. My contract still has more than a year left, so they cannot just make me leave. But they do not want to pay what they should either. Their lawyers sent papers saying I broke the lease by making too much noise and hurting the value of the property. It is all made up. Now they are suing me in court to break the lease early and make me pay their lawyer costs. If I lose the garage. And if I lose the garage, I lose everything. The hearing is set for Monday. Tonight is Friday. I had just finished a 14-hour day, 8 hours at the garage, and then 6 more serving tables at a diner near the highway. I do both jobs because lawyers are not cheap. The one I found is an old friend who was helping me for almost nothing. The rain started around 10 at night and had not stopped. I was driving home on the service road near Route 51. My wipers were going as fast as they could, and my eyes were half closed from being so tired. All I wanted was a hot shower and maybe 4 hours of sleep before I had to wake up and look through the case papers one more time. Then I saw the car. A black Mercedes was pulled halfway onto the side of the road. Its hazard lights were flashing weakly in the heavy rain. 2 girls stood beside it. They were maybe 19 or 20 years old. Both of them were completely soaked. One was waving at cars that kept driving past. I almost kept going too. I was tired. I had my own problems. I didn't have the energy to help anyone that night. But something about the way they stood there made me press the brakes. I pulled in behind them, left my engine running, and stepped out into the rain. It hit me hard, cold, and heavy, soaking through my work shirt in seconds. "Car trouble?" I called out over the sound of the storm. One of the girls turned. She had dark blonde hair stuck to her face, and mascara was running in black lines under her eyes. "It just died," she said. "We have been here almost an hour. Our phones are dead. No one stopped." The other girl held her purse tight to her chest, like it was the only dry thing left. She looked at me with real fear. It was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet and true. I walked to the front of the car and opened the hood. It only took a minute to see the problem. The battery connections were very rusty. The parts were loose, and the rain had made everything worse. It was not a hard fix, but it was not something you could do on the side of the highway in the middle of a big storm without tools or a jump starter. I closed the hood. "This car is not going anywhere tonight," I told them. "You are going to need a tow truck or roadside help." They looked at each other. One of them spoke first. "We could call our dad, but—" The other one gave a small, tired laugh that did not reach her eyes. "He is busy. He is always busy." I recognized that sound. It was not complaining. It was the sound of someone who had stopped hoping for anything different a long time ago. "There is a motel about 15 minutes from here," I said. "I can give you a ride. You can call for help in the morning when it is light." They both stared at me, like they were not sure I was real. "You would really do that?" the one on the left asked. I moved my shoulders. "I am not leaving you standing out here in this." They grabbed their bags, locked the Mercedes, and got into my Honda. The back seat had a toolbox and a pile of old papers. Compared to their nice car, mine probably looked like it should be in a junkyard. They did not say anything about it. The girl who sat in front turned toward me as I pulled back onto the road. "I am Sophie. This is my sister, Maya. We are twins." "Henry," Maya's voice came from the back. It was still a little shaky, but calmer now. "Thank you for stopping." "It is nothing." Sophie looked at me for a second. "What do you do?" I am a mechanic. I have a small garage. Maya leaned forward a little. So you knew what was wrong with our car right away? Battery and connections. Not hard to fix, just bad luck with the rain. We drove in silence for a while. The only sounds were the rain hitting the roof hard and the tired movement of the wipers. Then Sophie spoke again. You were coming home from work? I gave a short laugh. Second job, actually. Garage during the day. Nights at a diner near the highway. Maya was quiet for a moment before she asked, Why do you have to work so much? I had not planned on telling them anything, but the rain, the dark, and the way they were not looking at me like I was less than them made it easier to speak honestly. I am being sued, I said. A development company wants my garage space. They are trying to break my lease early. If I lose the hearing on Monday, I lose the business and probably everything else. Sophie turned in her seat to face me completely. But if your lease is not up yet, how can they do that? Because they have better lawyers and more money. That's how it usually works. Maya's voice was soft. That's not fair. I kept my eyes on the road. Fair costs money. People like me usually can't afford it. None of them spoke for a while after that. The silence was not uncomfortable. It just stayed there with us. Then Sophie said, almost like she was thinking out loud, Our dad works in law too. I looked at her quickly. Lawyer? No, Maya answered from the back. He's a judge. I did not think much about it at the time. There are many judges in Pennsylvania. My life was already full of complications without wondering about strangers. I just said, You should tell him what happened tonight. Sometimes people with power need to hear how regular people get pushed down. Sophie looked out at the rain on the window. He hears everyone except his own daughters. They did not say it with anger, just quiet acceptance. They told me their father was always in court, or at meetings, or at political dinners. He gave them everything money could buy, a nice house, a nice car, good schools, but he was rarely really there. Maya said he thought giving things was the same as giving love. Sophie said sometimes they just wanted him to sit through one dinner without looking at his phone. I did not have advice that would fix that. I just drove. When we reached the motel, I pulled under the covered area so they would not get any wetter. Before they got out, Sophie turned to me. Henry, you seem like a good person. I smiled, tired. I just did not want to see two girls freeze on the side of the road. Maya shook her head gently. No. Good people always say that, so it sounds like less than what they did. Sophie took out her phone, which she had been charging with a small battery in her bag. Can we have your number, in case we need the car fixed tomorrow? I took my wallet out, found one of the slightly bent business cards for the garage, and gave it to her. Call that number. I open at 8. She looked at the card. Henry Cole, I hope your hearing on Monday goes okay. I nodded. Me too. They got out and walked into the motel lobby. I watched them disappear behind the glass doors, then pulled back onto the road. The rain was still coming down hard. My shirt was soaked, my hands were cold on the steering wheel, and I had no idea that stopping for two strangers on a highway would end up changing the rest of my life. I just knew I was tired, and for the first time in a long time, I did not feel completely alone in it. Monday came too fast. The Allegheny County Courthouse smelled like old wood, paper, and worry. I sat at the table for the person being sued in the only white dress shirt I still had that was not covered in grease. I wore a tie I borrowed from my neighbor. My hands were clasped under the table, so no one could see they were shaking. Mr. Clark, my lawyer, sat beside me, looking through the file one last time. He was not a famous attorney. His office was small, his hair was gray, and he looked as tired as I felt. But he believed me. At this point, that mattered more than anything else. Across the way, Grant Harrington sat in a gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Next to him was his lawyer, Davidson, a man with a smile so thin it looked sharp. Grant did not even look my way. To him, I was just something in the way of his plans. Mr. Clark leaned closer and spoke quietly. We have the lease, we have proof of payment, we have photos showing the garage is clean. They do not have real proof, but they have money and a strong legal team. Stay calm. When they ask you something, just tell the truth. I nodded. My throat was dry. The court officer stood up. All rise. The Court of Common Pleas of Allegheny County is now in session. The Honorable Judge Benjamin Whitmore presiding. I stood. The door behind the judge's seat opened. Judge Whitmore walked in. He was in his late 50s, tall, with silver hair and a serious face. I had never seen him before in my life, but I knew him right away. The shape of his eyes, the way he tilted his head a little when he looked at the papers, the same features I had seen 3 nights ago on 2 wet girls standing beside a broken Mercedes. My stomach dropped. It could not be. Judge Benjamin Whitmore was the father of Sophie and Maya. He took his seat, opened the file, and looked at the first page. His eyes stopped on my name. Henry Cole. For half a second his face changed. Just a quick moment. Then it was gone, replaced by the same calm professional look. He looked up and met my eyes. He knew. I could see it. The recognition passed between us without any words. My heart was beating so hard, I was sure everyone could hear it. "Be seated," he said. Everyone sat. Judge Whitmore turned a page slowly. His fingers tapped once against the folder. "We are here today on the matter of Harrington Properties versus Cole Auto Repair," he began. "The plaintiff is seeking to end a commercial lease and get damages. Are both sides ready to proceed?" Davidson stood right away. Clark answered, "Ready, Your Honor." Judge Whitmore was quiet for a moment. His eyes stayed on the file. Then he spoke. "Before we begin, the court will take a 15-minute break." A wave of surprise went through the room. Davidson stood up halfway. "Your Honor, is there a problem?" Judge Whitmore looked at him evenly. "Nothing that needs argument right now. Court is in break." The court officer told everyone to rise. Judge Whitmore stood and walked out through the side door. I stayed frozen in my seat. Mr. Clark turned to me, frowning. "This is unusual." I could not answer. My mind was still trying to understand. 10 minutes later, the court officer came to our table. "Mr. Cole, the judge would like to see you in his private room. Mr. Clark, you are to go with him." Davidson objected right away. "The judge cannot have private talk with one side." The court officer stopped him calmly. "The judge has also asked for Mr. Clark to be there. Everything will be written down if needed." Mr. Clark stood, still frowning, but motioned for me to follow. My legs felt heavy as we walked through the side door and down a short hallway. The judge's private room had dark wood and tall shelves full of law books. Judge Whitmore stood by the window, with his hands behind his back, looking out at the city. "Sit down, Mr. Cole. Mr. Clark, you as well." We sat. Judge Whitmore turned around. His face was serious, but not cold. 3 nights ago my daughters called me from a motel off Route 51. Their car broke down in the storm. They had been standing in the rain for nearly an hour. No one stopped. He looked straight at me, until you did. I swallowed. My mouth was dry. "Your Honor, I did not know they were your daughters." "I know," he said. "That is exactly why this matters. Sophie and Maya told me what happened. That you had already worked 2 jobs that day. That you were exhausted. That you still stopped. That you did not ask for anything. That you spoke to them like they were people, not a problem." I looked down at my hands. Anyone would have done that. Judge Whitmore shook his head. "No, most people did not. You did." Mr. Clark was staring at me now, finally understanding. Judge Whitmore continued. "This creates an ethical problem for me. If I keep running this case, the plaintiff could say there is bias. I have thought about stepping away." My chest got tight. "But before I made that decision," he went on, "I looked at the whole file. And what I found suggests something more worrying than a simple lease fight." He opened a different folder. "Harrington Properties says your garage broke cleanliness and noise rules. Yet several of the photos they gave do not even match your place. One shows a completely different building." Mr. Clark sat up straighter. Judge Whitmore kept going. "They also say you were 3 months behind on rent, but your bank papers show the payments were on time. The management company seems to have written them down wrong." I turned to Mr. Clark. He looked shocked and angry at the same time. "Most importantly," Judge Whitmore said, "I had my helper pull the last 2 years of cases with Harrington Properties. This is the 6th time they have used almost the same claims to push small businesses out before their leases ended. 4 of those people could not afford to fight and just left. 1 went broke." The room felt colder. I was not the first. Judge Whitmore looked at me. Mr. Cole, I will not decide in your favor just because you helped my daughters. That would be wrong. But I also cannot sit here and pretend this is a normal business fight, when the records show a bigger pattern of using courts to push people who do not have resources to fight back. I managed to speak. My voice was rough. So what happens now? Judge Whitmore stood up. I am going back into that courtroom. I am going to ask the plaintiff to explain the photos, the payment problems, and the pattern of similar lawsuits. If they cannot give good answers, their case is going to have big problems. He paused, then added in a quieter voice, my daughters told me something else. They said that in the car you told them that sometimes people in power need to hear how regular people get pushed down. I lifted my head. Judge Whitmore looked out the window again. I have been a judge for over 20 years. I have heard thousands of cases. But I am not sure I have been listening to the people behind those cases as much as I should have. He turned back to me. You reminded me of that, not with a big speech, with one kind act in the rain. I did not know what to say. Mr. Clark put a hand on my shoulder and spoke quietly. Just breathe. Judge Whitmore walked toward the door. Let us finish this the right way. When I walked back into the courtroom, Grant Harrington was already at his table with his arms crossed, looking annoyed. Davidson stood beside him like a dog, waiting to be let loose. Judge Whitmore came in a moment later. No one watching would have guessed he had just talked to me privately. Court is back in session, he said. Davidson stood right away, his voice smooth and sure again. Your Honor, the plaintiff will show that Cole Auto Repair has broken the lease many times, with too much noise, bad disposal of waste, and late payments. Judge Whitmore raised one hand. Before you continue, counsel, the court has some questions about the evidence the plaintiff gave. Davidson stopped, clearly surprised. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Whitmore picked up a stack of photos. These photos were described by the plaintiff as taken at Cole Auto Repair. Can you confirm the date they were taken, who took them, and check the information on the files? Davidson answered fast. They were given by Harrington Properties management team. That is not what I asked. Can you confirm the date, the person who took them, and the exact place? Davidson looked at Grant. We can add to the record later. So right now the answer is no? Davidson's jaw got tight. Not right now, Your Honor. Judge Whitmore lifted one of the photos. This picture shows a blue sign in the upper left corner. According to the defendant's proof, Mr. Cole's garage does not have that sign. How do you explain that? Mr. Clark stood up. Your Honor, we have also asked whether these photos show our client's property. Judge Whitmore nodded. Noted. Grant Harrington was starting to look uncomfortable. Judge Whitmore moved to the next papers. The plaintiff also says Mr. Cole was 3 months behind on rent. However, the defendant's bank records show 3 payments made on the right days. Here are the numbers. Why does the plaintiff's record show these payments as missing? Davidson waited. There may have been a mistake in the accounts. An accounting error, Judge Whitmore repeated slowly. One that led to a lawsuit to end a lease and ask for damages? Davidson said nothing. Judge Whitmore turned to Grant. Mr. Harrington, would you like to speak to this? Grant stood, fixing his jacket. Your Honor, with respect, this property is being redeveloped. Mr. Cole's business no longer fits the plan for the area. We are just trying to protect our investment. Judge Whitmore studied him for a long moment. So the real issue is not lease breaks. The real issue is that Mr. Cole does not fit your development plans. Davidson quickly spoke. That is not what my client meant. But Grant had already said it. Judge Whitmore opened another file. The court also notes that Harrington Properties has filed 6 similar cases against small tenants in the past 2 years, using almost the same claims. 4 of those tenants left before trial. 1 went bankrupt. Can you explain this pattern, Mr. Davidson? Davidson stood straight. Objection. Those cases are not relevant here. They become relevant, Judge Whitmore replied, when they show a pattern of using weak claims to push small tenants out before their leases end. The room was completely quiet. I sat there with my heart beating fast. For the first time since this started, the people across from me no longer looked like they controlled everything. Mr. Clark stood, his voice stronger than I had ever heard. Your Honor, my client has never refused to work with them. He has simply asked that Harrington Properties honor the lease they signed, or pay him according to its terms. Instead, The plaintiff has given unproven photos, wrong payment records, and described my client as a bad tenant to avoid their own responsibilities. Judge Whitmore looked at Davidson. Does the plaintiff have any real proof showing that Cole Auto Repair made an environmental problem, went over noise limits, or broke the lease in a big way? Davidson was quiet for several seconds. We would need more time to add proof. Judge Whitmore closed the file. No, the plaintiff has had enough time. You brought this man to court and threatened his living. You do not get more time now. Grant's face had gone white. Judge Whitmore continued. The plaintiff's request to end the lease is denied. The claims of breaking the lease are not supported by enough proof. The plaintiff shall pay the defendant for reasonable lower costs. Also, this matter is sent to the district attorney's office for review about possible misuse of the court and giving misleading evidence. Davidson jumped to his feet. Your Honor. Judge Whitmore gave him a flat look. I suggest you sit down before I order more questions right here. Davidson sat. The gavel came down. Case dismissed. I stayed in my chair, unable to move. Sounds felt far away. I heard Mr. Clark saying something next to me. I heard papers moving. I heard Grant Harrington say something sharp under his breath to his lawyer. But the only clear thought in my head was, I still have the garage. I did not lose everything. I stood up slowly. My legs felt unsteady. Mr. Clark shook my hand, smiling for the first time since I met him. You won, Henry. I looked at him, still not fully believing it. I actually won? Not only that, he said. They are going to be investigated. I turned toward the judge's seat, but Judge Whitmore had already left. I wanted to say something. Thank you. Anything. But maybe he did not need that in front of everyone. He had done what he thought was right. Now I had to learn how to accept something good without waiting for it to be taken away. Outside, sunlight hit the stone steps. I stood there for a moment, breathing in air that did not smell like old wood and wary. 3 nights ago, I had stopped in the rain because I could not leave 2 strangers stuck. Today, that choice had not directly given me this win, but it had made one man look at me more carefully. And when he looked, he saw what Harrington had tried to hide. My phone vibrated in my pocket. An unknown number. I answered. Mr. Cole? A girl's voice said. It is Sophie. I paused. Hey. My dad just texted us. He said the hearing ended. Are you okay? I looked up at the clear sky above the courthouse. I still have the garage. On the other end, Sophie made a loud, happy sound. I could hear Maya laughing in the background. I knew it. Maya's voice came through. I told Sophie good people do not lose forever. I laughed. It was the first real laugh I had in months. Sophie spoke again. My dad wants to invite you to dinner this weekend. Not as a judge, just as a father whose daughters owe you for being kind in the rain. I did not answer right away. She added, and we want to bring the Mercedes to your garage. After everything, I do not trust anyone else to fix it. I smiled. I am free after 5 on Saturday. Then 7. I will text you the address. When the call ended, I stayed on the courthouse steps a little longer. I was still broke. I still had debts. The garage was still small. Life was still hard. But for the first time in a very long time, I did not feel like I was being crushed. I felt like I was still standing. Saturday evening, I drove my old Honda up the hill into a neighborhood I did not belong in. The address Sophie sent led to a gated area with wide streets and perfectly cut grass. I checked my shirt twice in the mirror before I got out of the car. It was clean, but it still looked like something a mechanic would wear on his day off. The Mercedes Sophie and Maya drove was already parked inside the open garage, looking completely out of place next to my dented Honda. I was halfway up the path when the front door opened. Sophie stood there, smiling like I was someone they had been waiting for. You came. Maya appeared behind her. Come in. Dad is in the kitchen trying to cook, and we are trying to stop him from burning the house down. I stepped inside. The house was bigger than my whole garage and apartment put together. High ceilings, dark wood, expensive-looking furniture. Everything was clean and quiet in a way that made me very aware of my boots on the floor. Nice place, I said, because I did not know what else to say. Maya moved her shoulders. It is nice. It used to feel more like a hotel, though. This week, Dad has actually been home for dinner. We are still getting used to it. Sophie nudged her. Do not scare him. Judge Whitmore came out from the kitchen wearing jeans and a gray sweater, with a dish towel in one hand. Without the black robe, he looked less like someone who decided people's futures, and more like a man who was not sure how his oven worked. Henry, he said, holding out his hand, thank you for coming. I shook it. Thanks for the invitation. He looked at me steadily. No, thank you for that night. Before I could answer, Maya cut in. Okay, you two can do the emotional talk later. Henry, what do you want to drink? Dinner was nothing like I expected. There were no servers, no long, quiet table. Sophie and Maya set the plates themselves. Judge Whitmore had made pasta that was a little overcooked. While everyone was still moving around the kitchen, I noticed one of the cabinet doors was hanging crooked. It bothered me enough that I asked for a screwdriver, found one in a drawer, and fixed it before we sat down to eat. When I turned around, all three of them were staring at me. Maya spoke first. You came over for dinner, and you were already fixing things. Occupational habit, I said. Sophie laughed. Dad, keep him. This house has about 47 things that need fixing. During the meal, Sophie and Maya talked more about the night their car broke down. They told their father how they had argued with him earlier that evening at some charity event because he left in the middle to take a work call, how they drove home angry, how the car died, how they stood in the rain calling him only to realize their phones were dead before the call even connected. Judge Whitmore listened without interrupting. He did not give excuses about work or duty. After we finished eating, Sophie and Maya started clearing the table. Judge Whitmore nodded toward the back door. Walk with me for a minute. We stepped out onto a wide patio that looked over the city. The lights below looked like scattered gold threads. He stood at the railing with his hands in his pockets. I have run thousands of cases in my career, he said after a while. I always believed I was fair, but being fair in a courtroom does not mean I was fair at home. I stayed quiet. He continued. Sophie and Maya have been telling me for years that I was never really there. I used to think they were being dramatic, that children from comfortable families complain because they do not understand hard work. But that night when they called from the motel and told me a stranger who was already tired still stopped to help them, I could not sleep. He looked over at me. You did not know who they were. You had nothing to gain. You had your own problems, and you still stopped. Meanwhile, their own father has spent years not stopping enough. I watched the city lights for a moment. You can still start, I said. He gave a small, tired smile. I am a judge. I know time that has passed does not come back. No, I answered, but the time that is left does. Judge Whitmore was quiet for a long time after that. I understand now why my daughters think so highly of you. I felt my face get warm. I just fix cars and pour coffee. No, he said, you are the kind of person this world needs more of, someone who still stops, even when they are sinking themselves. We stood there without speaking for a while. Then he asked, how is the garage? I still have debt. I still work extra hours, but at least I still have it. He nodded. Sophie mentioned she wants to bring the Mercedes to you. I will charge her the normal rate. He actually laughed at that. Good. When we went back inside, Sophie and Maya were arguing over which movie to watch. They pulled me into the talk, like I had been part of it for years, instead of just one night. I ended up on their couch with a glass of water, listening to two sisters debate scary movies versus funny ones, while their father sat in the armchair, pretending he was not already falling asleep. The house did not feel like a show anymore. It felt like a family that was slowly remembering how to be together without performing. Sophie sat down beside me and spoke quietly so only I could hear. He is different this week. He has come home for dinner 3 times already. Maya leaned in from the other side. And he only checked his phone twice? That is a record. From the armchair, Judge Whitmore sighed without opening his eyes. I am trying. Sophie looked at him, her voice softer. We know. I sat between them, feeling strange and quiet. I was not related to these people. I did not come from money or status or any of the things that usually connect someone to a house like this. But that night in the rain had brought our lives together anyway. Not like some cheap magic, just like a reminder that sometimes people help each other in ways no one plans. 3 months later, the sign above Cole Auto Repair still hung a little crooked on one side. Harrington Properties was under investigation. A couple of former tenants who had been pushed out, the same way I almost was, started talking to lawyers. The local paper ran a short story about their pattern of lawsuits. Grant Harrington stopped driving past my garage with that proud look on his face. I was still working. I opened the garage at 7 in the morning, ate lunch standing next to the toolbox, and sometimes still took evening shifts at the diner to pay the debt faster. But I was not doing it just to survive anymore. There was space to breathe now. Customers started coming more steadily after the hearing. Some of them had heard the story. Most came because Sophie and Maya had told everyone they knew to bring their cars to me. The Mercedes was the first one I worked on after everything settled. I replaced the battery, cleaned the connections, and checked the whole electrical system. When I handed Sophie the bill, she frowned. "You charged too little." "I charged what it is worth." Maya shook her head. "You are terrible at using connections." "I know how to fix cars," I said. "That is enough." They laughed. Saturday nights at the Whitmore house slowly became something regular. At first I felt awkward showing up. After a while, it just became part of the week. I fixed a leaking faucet in their kitchen, rehung a door in the laundry room, changed the spark plugs on Maya's car. In exchange, they gave me a seat at the table without making me feel like I had to earn it. Judge Whitmore was changing too, in small ways that mattered. He started coming home for dinner at least 2 nights a week. He left his phone in a drawer during meals. He asked Sophie and Maya questions that had nothing to do with school or achievements. One evening, after the girls had gone upstairs, he followed me out to my car because he said it was making a strange noise. I opened the hood and checked the belt while he stood beside me. "Have you thought about making the garage bigger?" he asked. "I think about it. Money does not think the same way." He smiled a little. "I know someone who runs a small business support program through the city. It is not a personal favor. It is not because of the case. They have funds for independent repair shops affected by redevelopment. You would qualify." I looked up from the engine. "You do not have to do that." "I know, but I can give you the information. What you do with it is up to you." He handed me a business card. I took it. "Thanks." He looked around the small garage. "You know, Henry, for a long time, I thought justice only happened inside a courtroom. Maybe part of it is also making sure people like you do not get erased just because they cannot afford expensive lawyers." I closed the hood. Justice sounds better when it does not come too late. It was not enough to turn the garage into something fancy, but it was enough to replace 2 old machines, repaint the sign, and hire a 20-year-old kid named Luis, who had been turned away from every other shop because he had no experience. I saw myself in him, so I gave him a chance. A year after the night it rained, Sophie and Maya decided to have a small birthday dinner at a quiet restaurant instead of a big party. They invited me, Luis, their father, and a few close friends. Halfway through the meal, Sophie stood up with a glass of water. "A year ago," she said, looking at me, "Maya and I were standing on the side of the road in the rain, thinking no one was going to stop. Then Henry stopped. After that, everything changed. The car got fixed. Our dad started getting fixed." Judge Whitmore sighed. "Sophie." Everyone laughed. "She kept going anyway. And maybe we got fixed a little too." Maya looked across the table at me. "Thanks for not driving past." I held my glass and tried to think of something that did not sound silly. In the end, I just said the simplest thing. "I am glad I stopped." Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I stood alone in front of the garage under the new sign. Cole Auto Repair. Honest work. Fair price. I thought about that Friday night. How tired I had been. How close I came to just driving past 2 strangers in the rain. If I had kept going, everything would be different right now. I probably would have lost the garage. Sophie and Maya would still believe their father never really listened to them. Judge Whitmore would still be fair in court, but absent at home. One small decision did not fix the whole world, but it opened a door. For me, that door led to keeping the garage. For Sophie and Maya, it led to a father who was finally learning how to show up. For Judge Whitmore, it led to remembering that behind every file, there is a person trying not to get crushed. And for me, it taught me that kindness does not always come back right away, and it does not always come back in the shape you expect, but it does not disappear either. It goes somewhere, it touches something, it changes something. Then, one day, when you are standing in a courtroom or beside a broken car or in the middle of your own mess, it finds its way back to you. in a form you never saw coming. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and looked up at the clear night sky. My phone buzzed, a message from Maya. Movie night this Saturday. Dad promised he will not check his email. You have to be there as a witness. I smiled and typed back, I will be there. I put the phone in my pocket and walked to my car. This time, when I drove past the stretch of road where I first met them in the rain, I did not see a storm. I just remembered one thing. There are nights when you think you have nothing left to give anyone. But if you still stop, if you still help a stranger, if you still choose to do the right thing when no one is watching, that single moment might end up saving the rest of your life. This story teaches us important lessons about kindness, fairness, and standing up for what is right. It shows that even when life feels hard, and you have many problems of your own, choosing to help others can create positive changes in unexpected ways. Small acts of decency, like stopping to help in the rain, can open doors to justice, stronger family bonds, and personal growth. It reminds us that true fairness means listening to regular people and protecting those who cannot fight powerful forces alone. Hard work, honesty, and patience matter, but so does community and second chances. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Your support helps this channel grow and allows us to bring you more amazing stories. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.